Hello again, everybody. Uh, Stardust made a video a couple of weeks ago about Endgame, and I'd like to take what he said and go a step further than he did, and I'd like to maybe counter some of his arguments. Now, let me preface this this video by saying this: Stardust is a hero of the MGTOW movement. He is a big reason why we understand things the way we do today. And in no way should his position as a champion of MGTOW be diminished. And that's not my intention at all. I just think that I come with a little bit of a different perspective. Hopefully you find it valuable. And again, I do not wish to diminish Stardust or anyone else that are MGTOW heroes. But let me begin, and you'll kind of get the gist of what I'm going to be talking about here. When we look at social changes that have occurred in our nation's brief history, it starts with philosophers. For the MGTOW movement, that would be philosophers like Barbarossa, Stardust, and others. But philosophy alone does not ultimately result in change. There's sort of a progression that begins with philosophy, but it ends with activism, right? So, we're talking about the Rosa Parks of the world, rioters who march, people who take action and say enough is enough, we want change and we want it now. It's birthed from philosophy. The MGTOW movement has been birthed by philosophers such as Barbarossa, Stardust, and others. We've taken the first steps in the direction of social change. The philosophers began the action, and we have responded by taking action in our own lives and becoming MGTOW. But I think Stardust may be a little, I'm not going to say he's mistaken at all. He's correct when he says getting men to stop worshiping pussy is part of the end game. And I believe that too. But I'd like to define it a little bit more clearly, and I'd like to also add a couple of things. The reason why Endgame can't be about worshiping pussy or getting men to stop worshiping pussy is because that will never happen on a large scale. It's easier for, say, a man like myself who's a little older, who, in all modesty, have had my share of relationships, to then see the light and stop worshiping pussy. But it's another thing to think that an 18-year-old or a 25, 35-year-old or 40-year-old man is going to stop worshiping pussy. If I understand what Stardust means by that, and I think I do, I don't think that that's possible really with the younger guys. All men are going to go through that phase of life and struggle with it, where they are sort of worshiping pussy. Some will make it out of that phase mostly unscathed, and some will pay a heavy price. And as men mature out of that phase, and our efforts as MGTOW philosophers have planted seeds of, well, I guess seeds of rebellion against society, older and mature men will then come into our fold, but only after that 15 to 20-year bout with the almighty vagina. Younger men are getting more involved with MGTOW, are more aware of it, which means that the noise that we're making as philosophers are reaching the younger guys, and they are responding. The younger guys are getting more and more involved or more aware of MGTOW. So what is the end game? If it's not worshiping pussy, and I'm not saying it's not so much as I'm saying there's more to it than that. The end game for me, to me, is when we have the ball on their 5-yard line and we're about to score the winning touchdown. And that comes with laws. The end game has got to involve the legal process and changing the laws in favor of men, at least equalizing the playing field a little bit. I believe that men want to have families. MGTOWs want to pass on their wisdom and their genes. to their children and have wives. I do believe this, but we MGTOWs, we grew up seeing the lives of our fathers, and they were slaving away, and we had very little time with them. And when you couple that with the modern hazards of marriage, we don't really want any part of that. But if those hazards weren't there, if men weren't, their identities weren't basically raped in the context of a marriage, and that's strong words perhaps, but I do believe men sort of give up their identity a little bit when they become family men. If those hazards weren't there, I think many of us would love to have children and have a wife and have that in the context of a system that didn't involve us slaving away and having little time with our families. I certainly think that would appeal to most men, or a lot of men. So I want to shift gears for a moment, because I think getting men to stop worshiping pussy is one part of it. But really, I think the key here to the end game is for us to stop with this selfish attitudes, or communicating a selfish attitude. And what I mean by that is this idea that men have no obligations to anyone but themselves. And that's repeated continually among a lot of our philosophers, and I think it's a little disingenuous. I understand where the no obligations idea comes from. It comes from a reaction to the fact that society has obligated men to lives that aren't appealing for us. And if should we fail in these lives, we're obligated even further, especially if we have children. And we have very little control. So I understand the reaction by saying, oh, society has placed all these obligations on us, so we don't have any obligations now. But really, I think that's just sort of a reactionary tantrum in a way. And I mean that with no disrespect, because it doesn't describe me, and it doesn't describe Stardust at all. I mean, a man who makes videos, fantastic, brilliant philosophical videos, certainly isn't a selfish human being. But the idea of we have no obligations makes it sound like we are. And maybe I'm parsing words a little bit. Maybe I'm getting into a semantical debate, which I don't really want to. But I really just don't want the idea that MGTOW men are selfish to be, a common theme among MGTOWs. I don't see MGTOWs as selfish at all. And I think that the idea that we have no obligations to anyone but ourselves communicates a selfish idea or a selfish attitude, and I don't think it's inspiring. And I want to be inspired. And people want to be inspired. And selfishness does not inspire. And I can tell you this, corporately, women don't think like this at all. I mean, individually, women can bitch at each other and call each other whatever, and some of them get along and whatever. But on a corporate scale, women really do have each other's backs. They get pretty much anything they want anytime they want it in a legal and political sense because of that solidarity. Women very much have each other's backs. Now, whether they feel an obligation to do this or not, I guess is irrelevant, because they just do it. It's a groupthink that they have that men kind of lack. My point is that the reason women have dominated the conversations regarding law, family, and individual rights is because they do feel a sisterhood on a corporate scale. They do have an us versus them mentality when it comes to advancing gender issues. Men don't have this. And the reason we don't have this is sort of symptomatic, or it's exactly because we don't feel like we have any obligation to anyone but ourselves. I mean, really, what has changed? Other than we've gone MGTOW, the actual attitudes that brought us to where we're sort of, the ball is, women are scoring the touchdown on us, the ball is on our 5-yard line, They're at the end game. They're at their end game right now. We're not at our end game. Our end game is pushing the ball to their 5-yard line. And I think part of the problem is this notion that we don't feel like we have any obligation to anyone but ourselves. Besides that, I mean, just philosophically, you can poke holes right in that. If you're a guy and your neighbor is a guy and his house is on fire, certainly you don't have an obligation to call the fire department. But if you didn't, wouldn't that make you a fiend? And I just don't see the no obligation thing as describing MGTOWs. I think it's more of a reaction to the casting off of societal expectations that has sort of caused this backlash. But MGTOWs aren't by nature selfish people, I don't think. It may sound like I'm just nitpicking here, but the point of this is, in order for us to begin to move the ball from our 5-yard line to their 5-yard line, we have to come to terms with that. We have to start thinking in terms of a brotherhood. We have to start thinking in terms of other men being like brothers, and that we do have an obligation to have each other's backs. This idea, more so than stop worshiping pussy, is, in my mind, the key to moving the ball down the field. The stop worshiping pussy thing, that's going to work on the older MGTOWs, but it's not really going to galvanize the younger guys because, I mean, lest we forget how incredible 20, 25, 30-year-old pussy was to us back in the day. It was incredible, right? So we're not really going, and you're going to do whatever you have to do to get that. So we're really not going to make any major changes there. But the subtle difference between moving from we have no obligation to we are brothers and we are all in this together is key to moving the ball down the field. But that's really not the end game either. The end game isn't the change in attitude. The end game is making it possible for men to have what they want. And that takes legal change. And men aren't asking for the moon. We want to be respected. We want to go out and work and achieve and have control and influence in the lives of our children. That's virtually irrevocable, especially with our younger children in their younger years, where women dominate the lives of sons and daughters. We want to be more a part of that, but it's not possible in this current economic system when you have to work 40, 60 plus hours a week. In order to make this happen, in order to make having a family attractive for men, we must see to it that legal changes are made, and that is the end game. But we're not going to get to that point if we don't start thinking corporately as brothers. We're not, again, going to change men's biology and get men to stop worshiping pussy. It's just not going to happen if I understand what Stardust means by that. We have to get involved legally. That is the end game. Once the legalities are in place, then men have a safer environment to have what they want, which is a family. And this is an idea, and I'm going to go off script here a little bit and just say this: if men don't get their heads around this one idea I'm about to tell you, we're really going to lose in another generation. We'll get it right for one generation, but the generation after that, it'll revert back to where we are now. And that is, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Okay, I think that women getting a little special treatment, a special protection, is more than just because they're females and we feel we as males are the stronger and the females need to be protected. I think it's more than that. That hand that rocks the cradle, that's where your allegiance is going to be. And when men have a safe place to start raising a family, whether it be through, adoption, artificial womb, surrogate motherhood, or even marriage itself. If we legally can make the marriage institution or raising children for men safe again, men really have to understand this concept of allegiance and the hand that rocks the cradle. Once we can understand that and make the sacrifices, if we want a family, so that we can raise them, not work all the time, work part-time perhaps, but spend, especially during the early years, spend a full-time job on assisting raising those children, that's when the game really will change. That will be, if that happens, or if that were to happen from our movement, that will fundamentally change the way men are treated in our